thank you everyone for joining. So I'm going to give you an update on the communications working group and what we've been doing for, I guess, the past 10 months. Seems recent, but time has somewhat flown. So my name's Adam Leon Smith. If you don't know me, I'm involved in PPP. I'm chair of the communications working group, and I'm the chair of the software testing member group. So a little bit of context and background first. So the communications working group was formed in January this year as a subgroup of the PPP committee, policy, programs and practice. It was formed of 8 volunteers who all volunteered over the Christmas break, and we also had 2 other members from other review teams. So there was a leveraging experts review and a member groups review. I think many of you will have seen the member groups review output on the volunteer portal. That's currently, I believe, out for consultation. So we had the chair of those 2 working groups also joining our meetings where appropriate. We noted extensive feedback on the website and other communication platforms that had come from previous conventions and reviewed that content. We also held a session in January as part of the members convention, and that poll that you see on the right was actually done in that meeting. But one of the key pieces of feedback from that meeting, it was that the volunteers are not necessarily the most representative of the BCS membership, and we need to make sure that we gather opinions, not just from the people that had time to turn up to that meeting. In parallel, another project was kicking off within BCS to look at the future online forums. That is a project which is intended to take some of the energy that's coming across on the Basecamp community portal and redirect that onto a better platform. So what have we been doing since October? Well, first of all, we did a review of all the existing communication channels that we felt would be in scope for community comms. And I'm going to take you through that list of channels. And we looked at why they exist, their audience, who they're owned by, whether people are engaging with them, and the structure applied to them. This has started to lead to some recommendations. We're very much not done. One of the reasons we're not done is we haven't got the survey out yet, which is really going to guide us in terms of the views of both volunteers and members, but that should change soon. In terms of our terms of reference, it's quite long, but I've kind of summarized I've taken the principal aim from the terms of reference and just reproduced it here. So we're reviewing the communication channels used essentially by members, between member groups and their members, all with a very big focus on the BCS community. We're including all sorts of media within that website, social media, email, mailing lists, and printed matter. We then seek suggestions, and we recommend things to the PPP committee to move forward. And then we can assist in implementation of the recommendations. Our members, I'm not sure if we've got anyone on today, but here's the people that sit on the working group. Thank you to all of them if they're here or listening to the recording after the fact. So let me take you through the channels that we identified in our initial discovery work. IT Now is obviously a key communication channel, a quarterly magazine that goes out to all members. I'm sure you're all aware of it. The head office also does regular webinars to keep members involved in contemporary issues. That's in addition to ones organized by member groups. There's a podcast, if you're not aware. I certainly wasn't aware until I started this review. It's a podcast that comes out periodically, which has some interesting guests. We have the public website, MyBCS and Basecamp as kind of web-based forums at present. The public website is obviously very one-way. MyBCS is obviously one-way, and Basecamp is really the many-to-many communication platform a lot of volunteers use, but not members at the moment. The Future Forums project that I mentioned at the start, so this is an online forum that has a lot more functionality than Basecamp. If you use Basecamp, you'll have noticed it's quite easy to lose track of conversations. It doesn't have threading, it doesn't have upvoting and things like that you expect in better collaboration tools. That is a project that's well underway, and I believe is in sort of early beta at the moment. We have social media. We have YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, which BCS uses to various extents. I think primarily LinkedIn and Twitter are the primary platforms that we see BCS content kind of going out regularly, and YouTube is of course being used for video recording. We also email. There's a lot of email. So there's a weekly newsletter, a monthly newsletter, there's a separate newsletter that goes out to corporate members, another one that goes out to RITTech members. We also all have mailing lists in our committees. There's been lots of discussion this year, and there's been an email migration going on around those mailing lists. Mailing lists are actually set up based on CRM groups in the customer relationship management system, which is potentially very flexible, but they're not set up in a very flexible way at the moment. So there's definitely an opportunity for improving that. We also have non-member lists, and obviously we all use those lists to issue formal member group communications where you're arranging an AGM and such like. Member groups as well have their own channels. They have webinars, events, intra-group communications, and newsletters. So this is kind of all the communication channels that we think are important, and we've based our review on this scope. So where have we got to? Well, like all BCS activities, it's volunteer-led. Various people have had more and less time at different times in the year. Let me take you through where we are right now. First of all, as I said at the start, we are doing a survey. So we're actually doing two surveys, one to volunteers and one to other members. So these have been, quite a lot of thought has gone into these based on the communication channels to ask members about their preferences. And the first one, which is going out to yourselves as volunteers, will be sent out on the 5th of November. So please do try and take a few minutes to complete that. It shouldn't take you very long. The second one is targeted at everyone. It's under review at the moment. The questions are under review, and I'm hoping we can get that out later in November or potentially in December. The intent behind doing these surveys is to understand how members want to receive communications from BCS, as well as from member groups that they're part of. So our second recommendation was about putting more governance around the website. So we initially recommended that there's more voice of the customer in the management and design of the member-facing pages, especially those that are dedicated to individual member groups. Some of the feedback we had on that from PPP was that we needed to really think about how that was governed in the long term. And as such, we are currently working on a long-term governance proposal, which we hope to send back to the PPP in December. We want to make sure that there is appropriate focus given to communication issues within the community, and that there is somebody who is responsible for that on a long-term basis, that has a mechanism to consult with committee members and lay members appropriately. Another recommendation we tried to pursue early was really about attracting early career members. We're quite conscious that real-time chat is very heavily used. I mean, personally, I get a lot more messages on Slack and Teams than I do on email these days, and much more of my life is migrating across to those real-time chat systems. So we wanted to do a POC with the early careers executive and/or university groups, but we've met some challenges with regard to compliance. Obviously, all these real-time chat systems typically go back to a server somewhere that is not hosted by BCS. So we started looking at this, solving this regulatory problem, but we actually decided to focus more on the regulatory problem than the chat POC. So we have deprioritized looking at chat for the minute, while we look at how member groups can adopt free SaaS tools in a compliant manner. Which leads on to recommendation 4. So we are trying to reach agreement with stakeholders to permit committee members to use ad hoc tools. Doodle is an example of something that came up. Someone wanted to use it, and there was a lot of confusion about whether they were allowed to use it. We want to put a process in place so that committee members have the flexibility to use those kind of tools within certain constraints, like not filling it with spreadsheets full of member data. This is still under discussion. I think we have overcome the compliance obstacle, but the details still need to be worked through. There's two other areas we've been working on, supporting the new member message forums as part of the online presence, being going to the project meetings and advising on our view of community needs. But we also made a joint recommendation with the member groups review to allow committee members to segment email communications by more than just someone who's a member of a group. So for example, I want to email people with certain levels of membership within my group because I'm trying to find an early careers advocate. There are lots of other examples where and use cases have been put forward where we might want to do more granular communication. So that is something that's in progress. So what are we doing next? Well, we're trying to get this survey out the door, and then we shall have a lot more insight into what people need, hopefully. We'll finalize our governance proposal and finalize our proposal for the committee tool approval. But after that, it will very much depend on the results of the survey. So, really keen to get as many people as possible to complete that survey when it comes out. Okay, that's a quick update on what we've been doing. But this is a good opportunity to get feedback from all of you and to get input on other areas that we could potentially look at. Communications is such a broad topic. We've had to narrow it down to a small number of things being worked on each time. But yeah, interested in questions or any feedback from the group. I guess that sounds like no questions and feedback. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
I haven't been in on this previously. Is there any place I can access past discussions?
No, there is some discussions to go on within the working group that are not accessible. But what I will certainly do is, sorry, a bit of echo. I'll make a post on Basecamp summarizing what I've said today and with this presentation to communicate to a wider group.
Okay.
Hi, Lee, go ahead. You're on mute, I think, Lee, if you're trying to speak. Okay, lowered your hand. Any other? Chris, go ahead.
Hi, Adam. Chris Banks, I look after comms for Enterprise Architecture Specialist Group. And one of the things that's been quite topical has been around social media platform. What we've seen is that where we've got in excess of about 2,000 members that subscribe to activity that's going on within the specialist group, that there's actually a LinkedIn community that we have as well, which is just under 1,200 people. And one of the challenges that we've come up against, which is when we're posting things, they're coming from people's individual accounts. And we don't have the same challenge on Twitter, for example, where it's coming from BCS branded accounts, and was really just wondering whether or not there's any additional thought into some of the features and functionality of how LinkedIn could be used as an effective communication platform, given some of the new things that you now see around having dedicated pages for organizations, dedicated accounts and things like that, to create a bit more of a branded, consistent sort of drumbeat in the communication that's going out to users on that platform.
So I know there is some social media guidance for member groups that I don't think has yet been issued. It doesn't directly contain the answer to your question though.
Okay.
I think the only way to post in a LinkedIn group as a kind of as the specialist group is to, as you alluded to there, set up a company page within LinkedIn. Well, we do quite effectively in my group because we have the same thing. We have a big LinkedIn group with lots more people than are on our mailing list. Is we recommend posts. So if one of the admins recommends a post, it gets pushed right to the top and gets some extra visibility.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you do that as well?
Yeah, we do exactly that, especially when we've got events that are coming up. We always make sure that those posts are going to the top just to raise the awareness of events within that community as well.
Yeah. So I think you would need to set up a company page in order to achieve what you're looking to do.
Okay. And is that something, can we expect some sort of guidance to come out just for other member groups and specialist groups around sort of some of the do's and don'ts around sort of LinkedIn, because it's quite a powerful platform and can enable quite far reach as well?
Yeah, I can answer that. Hi there, Chris. So hello. So we've got a new social media team. It's now 2 individuals instead of 1 individual. It takes quite a lot of time. And we produced some initial guidelines, but actually what we want to do is run a few more sessions with member groups to kind of, to get those guidelines up to date with what all the platforms are that groups want to use. So we've scheduled that work to start in January. Just because at the moment, this time of year is really busy for our teams in working with groups on AGMs. So we're looking to start in January.
Okay, excellent. And there was just one other thing. And Marie, who used to be part of the members group, she sort of shared some stuff with us before she moved into a different part of the BCS around using tools such as Hootsuite, because obviously with volunteers dedicating their time, posting things out, doing communication takes some time, and didn't know whether or not there's a overarching sort of view around how to drive automation of communication that's being considered.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair for Adam, but I think the paper that Adam's put together in terms of looking to short circuit the kind of approval processes for groups to use tools that they need to support their activity will help solve that problem. I don't know if Adam wants to.
Yeah, so I mean, so BCS are using a tool to do this, but it'd be very expensive to roll it out to member groups. Sorry, I'm just letting someone in. Now, there are a number of tools on the market: Buffer, Hootsuite, SEMrush. All of these do sort of scheduled automation around social media. So what we're looking to do, as John alludes to, is make sure that people don't have to go through a permission process to get those in the first kind of iteration. I think it would be sensible if there was a better solution for this community-wide and a single tool. So I'll note that down and discuss it with the working group.
Okay, much appreciated. Thank you.
Stephen, you've got your hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm on the committee for the financial services group. One of the things you mentioned was website governance, and I just wondered if you could drill into that a little bit more for us.
Sure. So I think when we've spoken to member groups, they have often been unhappy with the way their member group website works. There's also the volunteer portal, which has accessibility issues. And there's also MyBCS, which is a separate kind of system. Governing how all these works, we think needs to make sure that it has a focus on member group activities. We really found that a lot of the feedback coming in from other conventions and through other routes was that a lot of this content needs to focus more on member groups and less on BCS HQ. By putting in place some governance that does that and represents those views and directly acts as the voice of the membership to the web team, we think a better series of prioritizations will be applied.
Yeah, I mean, from our point of view, I can appreciate quite a bit of that. At other conventions, there have been dissatisfaction with the way that the websites are managed. Our own view is that our needs are fairly simple. We want to be able to publish our events. We want to be able to our members to be able to go to the website and download any presentations that have been made available to us by previous speakers. and we want to have some link throughs to one of our partner, which is a commercial publishing outfit, because we work closely with them. They're a financial technology publishing house, and we participate in a number of their events, and we want to strengthen that relationship. I think the project managers group have a not dissimilar relationship with the commercial entity, but we find that the response times of getting updates on our website can sometimes be a bit slow, but we are very grateful that the maintenance, the day-to-day maintenance of the website has been taken off of our hands and taken over by specialists. That's a big step forward that happened a few years ago, and we continue to be grateful for that.
So one thing we would like to, and we haven't recommended this yet, but we have had some initial discussions with the web team. There's obviously a content management system which controls the content on the website. We have discussed with them for member groups who want their own control. Potentially, the more control could be given directly to volunteers, so that within a CMS system, within a form, not code, they're able to make basic updates quickly. So as we form that governance process, that's the sort of thing we might decide to prioritize for members who want to be able to update more faster. But appreciate that you like the support you're getting from the community team to make those updates for you.
The other general point I've got about communication systems is that we don't make any use of Basecamp. We find it to be just not useful to us, and a lot of the people who are interested in our group are not even members of the BCS. But I am concerned about data protection, and one of our committee members is an advocate of Doodle, and I don't know very much about it. But of course, as you've already mentioned, you've got to be careful about using bring your own devices, where you've got copies of members and attendees lists, which are outside of the purview of the DPO, the BCS DPO. And I know that everybody wants to use WhatsApp. I don't use it for the same reasons. It's next door to illegal to use WhatsApp under any circumstances, let alone in a corporate setting or enterprise setting. So it would be useful to have some apps which can be used for greater immediacy.
So a few things there. So I don't use WhatsApp either unless I have to, but unfortunately some of my friends still use it. I haven't accepted the privacy notice from earlier this year, though, that enabled them to stop encrypting the messages if they're with businesses. So I have to deal with that pop-up at least once a day.
It's not about that. That's not the issue. The encryption is not the issue.
Okay. So yeah, data privacy is really important, and BCS primarily is using SaaS apps. They don't have a huge IT department to build and host apps, and it is very difficult to use a cloud app these days without some compromises being made in the data protection process. So what we want to do is, to take the Doodle example, is to make it very clear to committee members who are participating in the Doodle that they have an option not to do that, because Doodle is not necessarily fully approved from an end-to-end data transfer point of view, and that they're clearly informed that it hasn't been approved by BCS, to give a bit of flexibility to member committees just to organize themselves how they want. Basecamp is not necessarily, again, it's a SaaS app. It's not necessarily hosted in the UK. The great thing about the new online forums is they will be hosted in the UK in a compliant, secure way. So it's a very careful balance to make sure that BCS isn't spending too much on hosting its own stuff for data privacy reasons, which might go away in the near future with all various political changes. But also to make sure that committees have some flexibility to send out a Doodle when they want without fear of getting in trouble. Hi, Art.
Hello there. I just wanted to reiterate one of the things that I think Stephen was it just mentioned, which unfortunately I think a lot of people were having challenges hearing everything that Stephen was saying there. But I think that the amount of content that's being produced, especially now that most of our events are being recorded and then converted to video, not just the conference, but we're building up effectively this fantastic library of content. And now that we've got captioning as well, that means that we can kind of publish the words that were spoken, which makes it a lot more rich. And so I'm just thinking, if there was some way of making sure that within the website we can publish this information, it gives a rich trove of content that can be searched for by people who are interested in the various topics. So it makes it much more accessible if it's on the website with the other information, and it means that we're contributing, and also for the speakers, it gives extra publicity to what it is they put all their effort into.
Thanks. I guess no, that's a really good point. I think the online forums will help a little bit with getting that information to members, as well as just having a static website. But yes, that's the sort of thing that some people want to be able to do themselves through a CMS, or to be able to have it done more automatically. You're right, there's a huge amount of video content that must have been generated over the past year and a half.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of value that can be got from that, whether we put it behind some kind of restriction to members only, or perhaps we just make it more generally available as part of a marketing tool. Look, come and join us. This is some of the stuff you get. I think that's a very powerful amount of content that is being produced.
I think you're right. And when I look at competitors to my specialist group, there are commercial competitors that run paid conferences, and they do the same. They have all the video content in a back catalogue, so you pay for like a membership, and then you're able to access that kind of content. Hi, Mary.
Hi. Art, you might want to look at the primary healthcare specialist group website. Once you've worked out how to get there, if you go to the drop-down menu on More From, then events, conferences and events, you'll find the Education Day videos, which are now up and working. Is this the sort of content you're thinking of? Or is it more the discussion groups and forums?
I think that's up to the member groups. I think it's video content. Oh, I'll take a look at that website because I haven't seen it. But that does sound very much like the sort of thing that we're talking about. Yes. Anybody else? Okay. Well, what I'll do, I'll post this video on the Basecamp if you use it, so people can make any additional comments on there if they want to, or if you want to contact me directly, you can find me on LinkedIn or send a note to groups and they'll forward your email across. Sorry, I think got two more hands. Peter.
Hello, actually just a couple of comments. Actually, I have been observing the social media of BCS, and I noticed there are several YouTube channels that we have, and the BCS has got an official one, is the Charter Institute for IT, and also the members group channels. And there's a comment, there's also a comment in the comment section, is there are a lot of videos having 5 to 10 views on YouTube. That is particularly the point that I would like to make for us, because YouTube is kind of like the channel for young people mostly, and they are actually looking for short videos. They're looking for videos that are under 10 minutes. So for those videos, actually, normally, if it is interesting enough, normally they will get tens of thousands of views. So if that is the case, then actually it can be a very huge, a very powerful tool for BCS to actually outreach to a lot more young people. And I believe that is also one of the key strategic objectives that BCS is going to achieve this year, is to engage more young people. So in that case, apart from just the contents, like for example, lately the technology content is more interesting, or people are more interested on topics like cryptocurrencies and also NFTs, and also like, for example, blockchain and metaverse. These kind of topics are mostly and very, very much engaging to young people as well. So apart from these kind of contents that I would suggest that we can work a little bit more on, is the owner of the content publisher from BCS. I would suggest we can actually leverage more from the early career advocates. So these groups of young people, actually, you can just let them own this channel and have them actually be in charge of this channel. They will actually have the drive and also have the motivation to create very interesting videos for the young people. So in that case, you can just vet the videos to see if it is actually coherent to the branding, and it's actually acceptable to BCS as a branding content that can actually outreach to more people. So in that case, the YouTube channels can be more like can be more useful, and also it can actually direct it back to the Facebook and other social media, which in turn becomes conversion for membership later on.
No, I agree entirely about reaching younger people. I think one of the things I've been trying to do for my committee is find that early careers advocate who knows their way around Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah,
To help me with that. I think the way BCS is using it is more for hosting at the moment. I think because you don't really want to build your own infrastructure to stream videos when you can put a YouTube link on something. It isn't targeted at young people. I don't think. I think you're completely right. And I completely agree around using the early careers advocates.
Thank you.
Stephen.
Yeah, my question is somewhat related to that. In the sense of hosting, one of the things that we've asked for a lot of years now is that we would like BCS to provide something which is equivalent to Microsoft OneDrive or Google G Drive, somewhere where we can store our stuff, just a file store, and that might include videos, but things like just presentations, PowerPoints, meetings, minutes of our committee meetings, and other important documentation. If we've signed any agreements with outside external parties, we need somewhere to keep that stuff. At the moment, it's mostly kept on my personal OneDrive, which I don't think is appropriate, but there is nowhere else to keep it. Head office have got this concept of whereby I can email something to headquarters and it will be put somewhere, but I don't have access to it. What we want is somewhere that we can have direct access to and organize on our own terms. And it's something we've been asking for a number of years. And so when you mention hosting of event videos, etc., on YouTube, and just using them as a cheap way of storage, that's rung a bell with me.
So Basecamp does allow groups to manage documents and files. I appreciate not everyone likes Basecamp. And I think the online forums will allow people to do that in a certain way. So I think we'll be looking at the forums to see if they do provide useful functionality for storage. Of course, the problem with... Sorry, go on, Stephen.
No, I was just going to say, we did look at Basecamp, and we found the usability on Basecamp to be not very good. And then we had this other communications meeting last month, and we then started to get worried that, are they going to get rid of Basecamp? In which case, what would happen to any files we've stored there? So if a storage system is made available to us, it has to be on a permanent basis, not something where it could just disappear overnight.
I don't believe Basecamp is tagged for retirement from that perspective. John?
Yeah, you're correct. So the discussion forum elements of Basecamp will sit within Discourse, but the project management and document storage will continue to be a tool which will be available to our member groups. So really what Basecamp was invented for.
So noting that may not be the best solution for you, Stephen.
That's we identified as not being the best solution for us. As I say, we wanted something simply like Google Docs or OneDrive or Dropbox even. Although Dropbox is something you have to pay for, and we didn't feel like paying for anything.
They're all something you have to pay for, unfortunately, and they all come with...
Whether the group pays for it or whether headquarters pays for it. Yeah.
And they all come with data privacy issues, ultimately, because they're all software as a service applications. I think we'll review whether the Discourse online forums help solve any of this. Certainly, similar things allow you to create things like pinned posts and have various pieces of functionality, so messages with many documents attached don't get lost.
Well,
So
the other option is space or an appropriately sized space on your own shared drive, which is presumably hosted domestically or even on premise.
Yes, that is technically an option. It does present a lot of overhead though. So if you think about someone's got to manage that shared drive. So let me look at whether the new forums will provide functionality for this first.
Okay, so I'm just seeing a message here. Someone's not hearing me.
You are a little quiet, Stephen. In case anyone lost that, Stephen was asking about the best place to store files within a committee. Okay, Ipshing.
Yeah, I just want to suggest that let us make sure that we do not put the cart before the horse, because the communication tools is there to help the people communicate. Right now, looking at the AGM calls from various groups, we actually are short of people willing to volunteer. Maybe the focus is better to get the people together and let them use whatever they feel convenient and easy to use, so we don't mandate the tool and then accidentally drive away people who may volunteer.
Yes, agree with that. And that's kind of why we started with mapping out the different channels and doing the survey to really find out what people want. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, as I say, I'll make the video recording of this available through Basecamp, or feel free to reach out to me via member groups.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.